Welcome to the January 13th meeting of the City Commission. Chelsea, will you please call the roll? Oh, shoot, and I forgot what Jason said already. Chelsea, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Adamchak,
Here.
Commissioner McCullough,
Yes.
Commissioner Fox,
Here.
Commissioner Morrison,
Here.
Commissioner Von Lintel.
Here.
Mayor, we have 5 commissioners present. The quorum of 3 is met.
Thank you. Would you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item on the agenda today is to appoint a commissioner to the Riley County Law Board. This person will be completing the term of former Commissioner Matta. And we had a brief discussion last week that Commissioner Morrison is interested in this position. Is there anyone else on the commission who is interested? And Commissioner Morrison, can you just give us an idea of why you are interested in this position and what your qualifications are?
Well, I was on the first law board in 1970, whatever. Practiced law here for 53 years. Have been involved with law enforcement for that 53 years in various forms. I think I have an idea of what accountability and responsibility to the community is. I think I can bring maybe some critical issues that need to be discussed. So that's my plethora of information.
Someone pointed out something interesting to me today in that there's sort of an inherent conflict of interest with commissioners, both county and city, being on the law board, in that as a member of the law board, you have a fiduciary responsibility to be clear about their budget, and yet as a city commissioner, you also have a responsibility to be concerned about our budget. How will you handle those competing interests?
Well, I would assume that the city commission is going to give me some instruction to what they think reasonable financial ability is. And from that, it may be a conflict with what the law board thinks they want. And it's just going to be a process of trying to figure it out. If I have a conflict, all 5 of us have a conflict, and under the rules, you can't have 3 non-commissioners on there. At times, I've even leaned to the fact that because of that issue, we ought to have 3 commissioners that can speak for the budgeting process for both, rather than 2 laymen. The lay folks there are doing a good job, and I don't see that's the time now. And I do know it rotates, and the next time around, there may be 2 city commissioners and 1 lay person. There are inherent conflicts in finances.
Yeah. I think next time around it'll be 2 city commissioners and 2 lay people appointed by the city. We go 4 and 3 back and forth. I think that you've expressed a lot of good reasons. I would just say that I think it'd be nice if we had more than 1 woman on the law board. We, need to have some representation from the females too.
Well, I can tell you I'm not apparently the exception, because I get a lot of women calling telling me what they think I ought to do.
I didn't, I'm not trying to detract from your candidacy. I'm just saying we need to think about these things. And women do hold up half the sky, so.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to make a comment on this issue?
I think we have to decide if we're going to allow public comment.
Tonight is actually a legislative meeting, so it's already on there that will have public comment.
Okay.
So, since this is a special city commission meeting for this specific item.
Yeah, but it does say if allowed.
Not this one.
So, I think it says is allowed.
Related
That's
to
okay.
item is,
Oh,
okay,
if it-
is allowed, okay.
It is.
If allowed, yeah.
Is there anyone who'd like to make public comment on this issue? Commissioners, are we all in favor of appointing Commissioner Morrison to the Law Board?
I think we just need a motion.
So I would move that we appoint Commissioner Morrison to the Riley County Law Board
To fill the unexpired.
to fill the, to fill the unexpired term of Commissioner Mata.
I second.
Chelsea?
Commissioner McCullough,
Yes.
Commissioner Fox,
Yes?
Commissioner Morrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Von Lintel,
Yes.
Mayor Adamchak.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to discuss commission appointments, typo there that I didn't catch earlier, to external and/or city boards and committees. This is just an opportunity for us to express interest in serving on a number of the different committees. There are several where we are required, due to our position on the commission, to represent the city. So, for example, the mayor is a member of the Community Liaison Group for NBAF. I will also be a member of the Library Board of Directors as a voting member, and a member of the Board of Directors of the Chamber of Commerce as a non-voting member. Anybody?
I'd move the three that you have listed for yourself, being the NBAF, the library, and the Chamber of Commerce, that you'd be appointed for those three or designated.
I'd second that.
I don't think this will be coming back next week. I don't believe we need to take a motion, a vote on it at this time. This is more an opportunity for us to share our interests and express our willingness to serve.
That is correct, Mayor Adamchak.
Thank you. So, Commissioner Van Lintel, last week you expressed interest in the Flint Hills Area Transportation Agency. Are you still willing to serve on that board?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone object? Okay. Commissioner Morrison, do you have interest in another board, or?
Well, as a newbie, I'm learning a lot here, and I think with the law board, if it is critical, I'd be willing to serve, but I just as soon keep those two my intent for now.
Okay. There are several, you might just consider, there are several boards where it's suggested we have an alternate. So, for example, I have occasionally sat in for Karen. I did sit in for Commissioner Oppelt once last year. So let's circle around back to that in a minute. Perhaps you'd be willing to be an alternate. Just this ensures that boards can make a quorum.
Certainly.
Okay. Commissioner Fox.
So a couple of them, like the Housing Authority Board, I've got a lot of experience with housing and residential subject over the years, so I'd be willing to serve on that board. I'd also be willing to serve on the Municipal Audit Board, if you so chose. I've got some experience with budgeting and numbers, and so if you so choose,
Okay.
be willing.
Everyone acceptable? Acceptable? Okay. Commissioner McCullough.
I'm on the, I'm on the Visit Manhattan Steering Committee as Mayor Pro Tem.
Are you interested, will you maintain your presence on Regional Council?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm treasurer.
Okay. So the one that is outstanding is the Flint Hills Metropolitan Planning Organization.
I was thinking I'd be interested in doing that since I'm doing the other. Well, yeah, I think it makes sense to pair them.
I think you're right.
Okay. So,
Chelsea, do you have the list of what time the MPO Policy Board meets?
it meets at 3:30 on the third Wednesday.
All right, just wanted to verify.
And that is one, almost all of these meet, it's possible to zoom in, even though that's not stipulated on our list here. But, well, thank you all. I appreciate your willingness to serve. The two where we would like to have, or sorry, I guess there's three, where we'd like to have an alternate would be the Policy Board, the Metropolitan, the ATA Board, and the Regional Council.
So I'd be an alternate to Andrew on the MPO
Okay.
board.
Okay, thank you. And I can continue as an alternate on the Flint Hills Regional Council. Commissioner Morrison, would you be willing to serve as an alternate on the Transportation Board? The ADABUS, the Flint Hills Area Transportation.
Sure,
Okay, great.
you might ask them.
Okay. All right, well, thank you all very much for continuing your service to the community by learning about these organizations. Is there any public comment on this subject? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our next item. I've managed to misplace my agenda. Yes, we will be hearing from Mr. DeWitt about the wastewater treatment expansion plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Glad to be back here in front of you today. Talk about this project once more. We were here, well, I'll get to that here in a second, but so first I want to talk a little bit about who we have here today. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit of repetitive information for Mayor Adamczyk and Commissioner McCullough. A lot of this information is going to be just going back and reviewing some of the things that came to this date for the new commissioners. I know that we had a nice tour of the facility and staff got to present some of the particular items that are within the scope of this project, but we have the technical experts here to really dive into some of that if need be. But a lot of the information might be repetitive, and I apologize. But really, just the last time we met, we were somewhere in between 30% and, or sorry, the 60%, 90% development of the project, developing cost models for the project. So it was a good point to come and reintroduce the project because we hadn't talked about it for some time at that point. We knew that in the coming future, the next steps would be we were developing that 90% cost model, going out, and our CMAR contractor was going to go out and solicit bids, start to develop that guaranteed maximum price, and dialing in that number, that cost, and then we would be coming back to you soon to approve that amendment to the contract so that we can start the project. And so the other component of this work session item, this presentation, is just to really outline some of the happenings since then, the processes we went through to get bids, and really what that dollar amount is we anticipate it's going to be. So we have to have a draft GMP proposal from Crossland, our CMAR. They're going to tell you a little bit more about some of the factors that went into developing that, decisions we made over the course of the last month and a half, 2 months to dial in that price to get it to be the most economical, the most valuable project for us. So with us today is Carollo Engineers. Garrett Sheehan is our project manager, lead designer. He has been heavily involved with almost all the major plant expansion or improvement projects at both the water plant and the wastewater plant recently, going back to the 2010 expansion and upgrade at this wastewater treatment facility. Been involved in a couple at the water plant as well. Also very heavily involved in facility planning that we did in 2016 or 2017, 18, 2019. So very familiar with our plants. He's an expert on water and wastewater treatment. Just a general expert in all things. He does work with these type of facilities all throughout the country. So Carollo in general, we work with them a lot because they are one of the nation's foremost water and wastewater engineers. That's all they do. So they are one of the top echelon consultants when it comes to water and wastewater. Also on the team is Mike Milius with Olson. Mike's out of the Kansas City area. Olson was brought in to help with some of the site civil at various locations on the biosolids farm. They also have a lot of experience dealing with the Corps. They were involved with the levee project, with any permitting, as well as any utility relocations related to the levee. So they have a lot of expertise in dealing with the Corps and trying to get projects done within that critical zone of the levee. So they'll also be heavily involved when it comes to project inspections when we get into construction phase. And then Joe Barnes is with Crossland Heavy. He's our project manager for the CMAR, the construction manager at risk. So I was asked to give really a timeline of some of the history of this project. It's not something that's new. This is something we've been working on for almost 4 years now, starting with soliciting requests for qualifications for engineering consultants. When we put that out, we got 2 respondents. One was Corollo, and the other, I believe, was an HDR team with Benesh. So we selected Corollo. We authorized an agreement with them in September 22, basically to do preliminary design and help us with the CMAR selection process. And fast forward to February 2024, that's when we went out and solicited requests for qualifications, request proposals for the construction manager at risk, and we had a selection committee that got together. We reviewed 4 submittals for that particular part of the project, that team member. We whittled that down to two teams to interview, and ultimately selected the Crossland Heavy team. They have obviously a wealth of experience both at water and wastewater treatment facilities. They have branches that deal with vertical construction. They're active here in town. They've got a lot of experience in the Junction City water and wastewater treatments. If you noticed the expansion that's going on in the hotel at Blue Earth Plaza, their vertical construction companies working on that big project as well. So a lot of construction experience. So it was a qualifications-based selection, but they also had to submit cost proposals where they provided their fees for their pre-construction services, and then they had to list a percentage fee that they would take that would be essentially, I guess, an overhead and profit over the final cost of the project. And so they weren't the lowest for as far as pre-construction services, but they were the lowest as far as the percent fee on the CMAR project. They were at 7.5%. The other one was at 10%. So we proceeded working with Crossland as a part of our team from the 30% mark till now. And then we brought an amendment to engineering services with Corollo in October 2024. And just as an upcoming item, we will have an amendment with them here in the next couple of weeks, so they can they'll be a part of the construction administration process. And then Olson, as I mentioned, will be part of the inspection team. Just to highlight just these numbers here, to date, we've spent about $2.3 million, a little bit more than that, for design and pre-construction services with Crossland. One thing I forgot to mention in the information I provided to you, we also did pre-procure a dredge for our biosolids farm. That was a previously identified CIP project that goes well back to before we did a facility plan, and it's just something we've been putting off for years, knowing we were gonna have a bigger project, that we needed to upgrade that facility as well before we brought that new dredge on. We actually pre-procured that back in March at a cost of $382,000 and some change. So that was delivered. We wanted to make sure that it was here and available for this upcoming spring application season, because the dredge we have, it's held together with Band-Aids and duct tape. So most application season, it fails and we have to find some other solutions. So that purchase was paid for with cash, but in the grand scheme of things, we will likely try to include that with any financing we do for the project. So that's just a little background of how long we've been working on this project. I'll go through a few of the project goals, but I'll let Garrett come up here in a minute and really talk about some of the details. But in our walkthrough at the plant, we kind of reiterated this really isn't driven by any specific federal regulation like some of our last projects are, but is definitely intended to help us to meet regulations in the future. The primary goal of this project is stated in that top line. It's to improve performance, redundancy, resiliency, and reliability. So this is a true capital improvement project. We are investing in our infrastructure, because if you're not investing in it, you don't do it now, it's only going to cost us more down the road. But that redundancy, one of the major components of this project is redundancy. We talked about the DAF system, and if it goes out, we're in trouble. It was really only intended to be a system that we use for 3 months out of the year, and we've found that with the recent upgrades and the biological nutrient removal process, we have to run that thing 11 months out of the year, with the other month being when it's down for maintenance. So just reiterating that most of the project scopes, most of the scope items within this project, they came from a facility plan that was done in 2019. That was an effort between city staff, Corollo engineers, and I believe Banesh was a part of that. There are a few projects, like I mentioned, the dredge, that were CIP projects that either predated or came in after that facility plan. Talking about SCADA system upgrades. You saw the screen and the system, that is basically the brains of the operation. That server is many years old. Every time the operators have to reboot that, they have to cross their fingers and do a special dance to make sure it reboots and starts up. We're working on a temporary emergency solution, but this project is also going to include that scope. It was almost a $500,000 CIP project to replace those servers. So projects like that, where we knew we're going to have a consultant on board, a contractor on board, so we're going to lump these projects in. So just kind of trying to reiterate that these are needs, they're not wants. We talked about, extending the life of this facility. Some other improvements that we worked into are actually going to extend fiber to the facility. And just to note that we've also actually removed some major scope items from the project that, over the course of 30% design, we realized they weren't cost feasible. So we intended to have a third lagoon at the biosolids farm. We have 2 now. A third we found out was going to be pretty expensive and really didn't realize the benefits from that cost. So we removed it. We know that down the road, if we need to, we can actually reprogram that into the CIP. And there's just a couple other smaller things that we've already done due diligence and try to evaluate the scope of this project and try to make sure we're only getting what we need. So with that, I'm probably going to turn it over to Garrett Sheehan with Corollo. So come on up.
Thank you, Randy, Commissioners, Mayor. Thank you for having me. I'm Garrett Sheehan with Corollo Engineers in Kansas City, Missouri. Randy, thank you for the gracious introduction. It gets better each time, but I do have a lot of history with wastewater treatment plant facilities, and I want to give you a bit of a history of how it's grown over time. In 1974 was the first time the plant was built. It was built with a capacity of 6.2 million gallons a day. And for context, 1 million gallons a day is about 10,000 people. So every time you see 6.2, that's 62,000 people. At the same time, the biosolids farm on the south side of the Kansas River was built. That's where the biosolids are disposed after they're processed. In 1998, with the growth of Manhattan, there was an expansion to 8.4 MGD where the facility grew to the east. In 2004 was the solids improvements. This is the last time that solids improvements were made at the plant. That's the project we're doing today. So it's been over 20 years since we've actually touched the 2004 improvement projects and upgraded those. In 2013, we designed a further capacity upgrade and also did improvements that complied with Kansas Department of Health and Environment requirements for nutrient regulation. So there was a regulatory driver for this project, very big capacity, regulatory, and improvements. So at this point, we have a plant that serves 110,000 people and meets all of KDG regulations. The plant performs very well. I would say it's in the top 10 of the entire state when you consider all of the different things it needs to do. So a testament to plant staff. Oh, Mayor?
Can I just
Not
ask a
Mayor.
question? I know we got in trouble in about 1999 with the EPA with our sludge, and we had to,
I would let Dr. Gerard talk about any problems in 1999 about that, but I know in the past decade, the biosolids program has won many awards for its biosolids application program, a testament to the people that work the farm and Dr. Gerard and his management of that program, so.
Okay. We got fined on,
He's been doing this for
Yeah,
20-something
right.
years, so, yes.
I'll be happy to provide you with more information about the situation, but you're right, 1998, we hit with the EPA action, and we had to pay a penalty for that, and, but I'm happy to report to you that we changed course. One of the main factors at that time, we didn't have the land resources. All we have is 99 acres.
okay.
At the present time, we have 600 acres. We have more land to work with.
So we were putting too much on the acreage.
We saturated that. From 1974, I was hired in 1995. So from 74 to 95, there were a blank sludge every year in those 99 acres.
Okay,
You can imagine what happened to the soil. There was elevated nutrients, and the groundwater is very shallow, about 10 feet. So the groundwater also was contaminated because nitrate is soluble. But we went through that. It was not the best times. It was very hard. But as you probably know, we won many awards here for the Biosolid Program of the Year by the Kansas Water Environment Association, and that's passed behind us.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, I just wondered if it really wasn't the plant issue, it was where we were putting the sludge. That was,
It's the Biosolid, the byproduct of the
Thank you.
treatment process, yeah.
sorry to bother you.
This is your presentation.
I enjoyed the tour that we took for the facility, and I think it's just really well run, and just everything looks clean and it smells good, and you're like, it should smell worse and it doesn't, so it's good.
Well, the plant staff works hard to maintain that, so they do a great job, and they've always done a great job. So part of this project is the autonomy to give them the ability to keep doing that, keep addressing everything Dr. Gerard just talked about, giving a program that continue to be award-winning, and keep Manhattan on the map as a very positive environmental steward. Probably should advance to this slide. This was the slide where all the sludge that is processed at the plant goes, it's stored and then land applied across, as Dr. Gerard said, 600 acres. The city made the move to purchase the land versus lease the land. So that, again, meets the autonomy goal of this. And so complete control of the biosolids application to make sure we're always compliant with EPA regulations in this. When the RFP came out for this, as Mr. DeWitt noted, we did propose in this. What we did is we took the city's requests for what they wanted to see in a project and develop a roadmap, so we could all be clear about what we wanted to see. So this reflects the city's desires at the time. Fortunately, the city did select us to continue, so we took this as the roadmap. And over the course of time, as we developed this with the help of Crossland as our CMAR to help bring construction and contractor experience into the decision-making process, I'm not going to go through each of these. It's probably not time, and we don't want to go into those level of details. But we are touching so many parts of the plant. Parts of the plant we haven't touched in 20 years. Parts that, if you saw the tour, some of them are starting to get at the end of their life. At 20-plus years, just imagine your car. For 20 years, things start to break down. So we're trying to address those things to replace them, give redundancy and get resiliency, and give the city the power to make sure they're always meeting permit and always complying with regulations. So a lot of items here. I'd be happy to discuss any one of them with you, but for the sake of time, we'll keep advancing and talk about improvements at the farm. Mr. DeWitt already talked about the sludge dredge replacement. We originally had scope 2. We're down to 1 that has been pre-procured and is on site. There's other improvements around there just to make it easier for plant staff to do their job. At this point, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Barnes. He's going to talk about the cost model development and the contractor involvement in this
Oh,
project.
quick question. You said we have a capacity of about 110,000 people right now?
Roughly an equivalent, 11 MGD, 10,000 people, yeah.
And
roughly.
we actually serve how many? 54? Our population 54, but
Yes, our population.
our population.
We are a regional provider of wastewater treatment services, so we do collect wastewater from the very quickly growing area in Blue Township.
Okay.
Every year, when we provide information to the state, we give them just a population of, our system. people that utilize our system. I think, let's say it's about. Yeah, our service area, and it's well over 100,000, right? Or give or take.
We have, what, the last number I have is, what, Blue Township,
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, so obviously, between what we bring into the community from Wamego and people that come and work, the people that we serve in wholesale districts, it's substantially more than just what the city of Manhattan population is.
Right, so are we pushing the limits, or,
As far as biosolids operation
Capacity?
and our plant capacity, no, we're not. We have plenty of room for growth.
okay,
Like I said, this project really isn't about expanding our capacity
okay,
so much, so.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, plant average flows are around 6+ MGD right now, so people are using less water than they have in the past. So some of those general rules of thumb of 10,000 people per MGD, they vary depending on water usage and the type of water and how that water comes into the plant from Blue Township or otherwise.
I'd have a question. If I remembered the chart fast enough when Randy went through it, it appears that your company's fees to design this, a little over $2 million, is that correct?
That's correct.
And even with your past experience, we start over on these kinds of projects because from what I understood you're doing, you're adding a big storage tank and you're updating several different processes. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Joe Barnes, Carlson Heavy. So I'll be the project manager for the pre-construction phase, and I wanted to walk through, what the pre-construction phase, what our services encumbered. So our contract was with you, the City of Manhattan, right? And we're partners with Corollo as side teammates throughout this process. So one of the tasks in the CMAR contract is to go through and give the city cost models at certain design intervals. So your contract with us was to give you a cost model at 30% design, 60% design, 90% design. And then at 90% design to give you a guaranteed maximum price. So a cost to do the entire project that we won't come back to the council for additional funds. So a couple other tasks that we provide, services that we provide is value engineering. So we look at the state of the design, 30, 60, 90, and offer you, the city, and the design team constructability feedback. A couple of them, we rotated the digested sludge pump station to avoid some major electrical infrastructure. We helped facilitate, where the digester location is, how to preload that, some other constructability things throughout the project. We also provide a construction schedule to help the design team and help you understand, what is this process going to look like? How long is it going to take? What is the order that we're going to do these tasks? And then that helps the design team also on the backside to develop how much time are they going to need to provide for doing inspections and quality control on the project. So as we mentioned, the GMP, that's a price and not to exceed, right? And so since we don't have full design drawings, we're entering into this contract with you guys to build this for a price. Standard practice is to have allowance and contingencies. So allowances and contingencies help us mitigate things that can't be quantified, things that haven't fully been designed, things that we may encounter in the project as the project commences that nobody was aware of, right? So tariffs are one that have been talked about a lot in the past. Price escalations, are there things that we may not foresee now that a year from now are gonna cause some issues? So with these being built into the project, we obviously won't have to come back and request additional funds. There's some allowances for items that didn't make sense to put in a specific bid package that us as the CMAR are gonna take care of. And then obviously as the design goes to 100%, there may be modifications in the design that we need to account for. And our stance on allowance and contingencies, we're always gonna ask and work with the project team to give detail of why they need to be spent. And then our philosophy at Carlson Heavy is, at the end of the job, that's not money that we can take as extra profit. We're gonna give that back to the city, and you're gonna realize that.
Question?
Sure,
So let me be clear on the contingency. It looks like it's about 2.5%.
correct.
So unexpected expenses, eat that up.
Yep,
Then anything above that, you guys eat
correct.
as far
Yep,
as,
yep, we're taking the risk, right?
Yep.
We're saying at 90%, we feel like this is the appropriate amount of contingency to take that risk to build the project for you.
just want
Yep.
to be clear on that.
Correct, correct.
I guess just kind of clarify it. This is really our first experience with using CMAR for a utility project at one of these large facilities. We've used CMAR projects in the past at other locations. Generally, there become time where you might find a scope item that we decided we wanted to maybe look at further and incorporate it in the project. That would be more a time where you could potentially come as an amendment. We've done this with various projects, such as probably the Seco Park project, the parking garage, or not, maybe not the parking garage, but some stuff in Aggieville, you know. When those bigger picture things come that are really changes the scope, that would then transition into like a change order type amendment where we're gonna come and present stuff like that to you. The idea is, hopefully we will avoid those, and that's the plan.
I have an observation or question, I guess, Randy or Mr. Barn. When you took a statement and showed that about what would be exceptions, in other words, undiscovered, I would assume with high-powered engineers, designers, and contractors, you've looked at the soil before you made a bid. So I would think there should be very few, if any, change orders because of a design problem, because that's a design problem that you eat. Is that a fair statement?
Sure, there's, obviously, the plant's been around a long time. There have been upgrades, there have been, repairs that have been done to the plant. So there's always the risk that something has been placed in the ground that didn't get documented into an as-built, which then the design team wouldn't have known to put that on the plans. And so if it's an unknown, right, that's where we would, and we encounter it, we would use our allowance or our contingency to take care of that, right?
And the other thing, your fee, so the public knows, that I assume public will never see the light of day of most of this, they can find it if they want, I understand, is $1.5 million to make sure that Corolla knows what they're doing. In the sub, did you take the bids from the subs?
We did, yes. As the construction manager, our task is to facilitate the bidding process, and I can walk you through that. So we have a electronic platform. It's called CivCast, and it's a platform where we put the plans and specifications. We develop the bid package that you see on the screen here. We solicit that to the market. We invite our trusted partners to bid on those, and it goes into this proprietary software, CivCast. And even though we are hosting that, we can't see any of the bids until the bid opening. So it's a completely separated process, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but there were bid packages. We're a self-performed contractor. We want some of this work. We want to do some of this work, and we have to competitively bid. We have to put a bid in just like everybody else into the CivCast software. So that answered your question.
Well, two things. One, I wanted to make sure the public understands it's $1.5 million we're paying you to be a supervisor. And that's 7.5%. That seems a little strong, but I'm told seems to be a customary number we've learned to live with. Is that correct?
Sure. I mean, we do this all across the Midwest, right? And we're bidding against competition. We have to evaluate the project, and we have to come up with what we think our fee is going to be before we even see plan specs, right? We're coming in this without anything. We're seeing the RFQ and the RFP with limited information saying, this is how much we're willing to do the project for. And we competitively bid, and as you heard earlier, there was 2 bids, and our fee was significantly cheaper than our competitor.
So of the subcontracts, how many is your company doing?
So we'll get into that. We put in bids on 6 of the bid packages.
How many of them are in your?
We only got 2.
And we talk about conflict of interest. Who's going to check you to make sure you do your good work? Because you're checking everybody else.
Sure. That's why the city has hired Corolla. We sent them our cost model at the 30%, 60%, 90%. We sent them the GMP. We went through it. We're fully transparent. How many lines are in our cost model? Hundreds and hundreds. It's a detailed cost model that, you know, we're not trying to hide anything,
I didn't
right?
say you were.
Okay, no,
Things can go bad. The question is, who's gonna call you on the fact that you screwed your part of it up?
sure.
Is that Corolla, or is that you guys as project manager? Isn't that part of your job?
We have to complete that scope of work for what we bid it. It's in the GMP. It's a scope of work that we're gonna complete for a set lump sum amount. So we have to do that scope for that amount.
Thank you.
Sure. So through the bidding, go ahead, sorry.
So I would just point out that I've been involved in several of these type arrangements with the university, with various construction projects up there, and I think it went very well. I think they worked very well. Your fee seems to be in line with the fees that we paid for various projects. So, and to your point of him overseeing construction, we always look to the architects to oversee the contractor.
Sure.
And we even went as far as hiring our own consultant to oversee everybody. So you're all kind of overseeing each other and.
Yeah, a lot of times these partnerships, we would have Carollo be our design engineer. In many CMAR projects, you would have another consultant come on board as like the owner's rep. In this instance, we relied on Carollo to come back and be our owner's rep during the construction process. Like I mentioned, we'll come back for an amendment to bring in Carollo to be our construction administration's engineer. We'll have Olson as our inspector. So that team, that collaborative team will continue, and there will be checks and balances even between the city as the owner, Carollo as our owner's representative. So there's really, like Joe mentioned, there's complete transparency through the process. As the owner, as our owner's representative, we have access to every piece of information, and we can check it whenever we want, so.
So the $21 million in the bottom dollar for the project, if we add Corolla for being an inspector and Olson, is that correct?
Yeah, that's
Any-
correct.
Any idea what those fees might be, or have you asked them?
Well, there's general percentages you can expect for a project based on the construction costs. Like a $25 million project, you can expect between 10 and 15% design fees. That's kind of what when we're checking scope and fees from our various consultants, we're trying to make sure that it falls within that range so we know we're not being gouged. Like I said, what we've spent with Carollo to date is within that 10% range. I think we're like 9%. So, our ability to monitor that really goes back to our experience on other projects, plus general industry standards where, that you're looking for that general range just to make sure they're not out of line. And, like I said, very similar with CMAR fees. I would imagine Joe can talk to a little bit about if this wasn't a CMAR project and if it was just a design bid. We accept bids. They're doing a very similar thing where they're the general contractor, but they're managing subs. Anytime a sub has a cost, they're taking a percentage of that as overhead and profit. And really, I think I would akin some of these CMAR fees to, that's their fee for managing all the subcontractors and, overhead and profit. I don't want to speak for Joe, but that's kind of my assumption. I'm assuming he would say it's not substantially different than a traditional design bid project, which we've done on the majority of our large-scale projects like this.
Yeah,
Can we jump to the pricing summary slide? Is that on the?
Presentation.
Yes, we may. Sorry, yes, we may proceed through the presentation.
all right, okay. So as part of our CMAR process, obviously we've got into this, but we developed bid packages. And we looked at the scope of work and developed these bid packages so we could get the most participation, right? We didn't lump a lot of scopes together so that another general contractor was gonna get these, right? We're looking for trusted, very professional subcontractors to do these scopes of work. And so we came up with 24 bid packages on the subcontractor side. Now, there's also equipment. There's major equipment that is going to be purchased. through this process. And we wanted to separate that because we feel like the owner gets the best value by separating that. You're not having another contractor mark it up, right? You're getting a true price of what does that piece of equipment cost? And you're seeing that. And then the other bid package for the subcontractors, you're gonna pay in those bid packages to install that equipment. So by doing this, by separating these, you don't have funny games that equipment vendors, lump things together. You're getting true competition on each one of these. And Garrett pointed out, we say 13 equipment bid packages. Under number 6, there's actually 2 bid packages there. So if the numbers don't look right, that's why. And some of the efforts, we reached out to 300 contractors and suppliers for this project to get pricing. 53 of them actually participated by going into CivCast, giving a bid, placing a bid for a scope of work or for a piece of equipment. People are always interested about local participation, and we did a query of everybody, and there were 9 in the Manhattan area that proposed. 4 of them actually put in bids on there, and we already hit on this. Us as the CMAR, we're not guaranteed any work. We have to bid on that work. We have to put in a proposal and put dollars and cents to a bid package. So we put in on 6 of those, and like we said, we were awarded 2.
Thanks, Joe. Construction cost progression. In June 2025, I know a few of you weren't here at the time, but we presented our 60% design cost model that was developed by Crossland as a 24.3. As progressions go, this was somewhat normal to expect it to climb up as we were getting there. We're trying to narrow it in on the certainty, narrow it in the scope of work, find value engineering opportunities. But what traditionally happens is after 60% and you get that number, you start looking at each of those line items, and like you said, there's hundreds. Where is it that there's uncertainty? So the CMAR will present some risk as a percentage and say, I bet 20% contingency on this item. So we'll go back and say, how can we make it more certain for you? CMAR model is about cost certainty. So how can we, when we're certain about the cost, so at bid day, we're not wondering what it's going to be, we have a very good idea what it's going to be and control that. So our goal for, at the June 25 City Commission work session was we need to be down within that range. That was our prediction. So what we did is refine the cost. During that time, we looked at different bid alternates for different things in the project that we'd maybe like to have, needs versus wants, and again, built it in all of the bids that Crossland put out. So what are those real costs? Real costs from vendors competing for the work. So instead of it happening kind of behind the scenes, everything's exposed on the CivCast platform, and Crossland did give Corollo access to that, so we're able to review every single one of those bids, cross-check them with the cost model. I was up at 11 o'clock last night sending him emails. He was sending them back because we need to refine this. We need to get this on the next legislative agenda for an amendment, normal agenda. So we're going back and forth. So there's lots of checks that are going on, and that's what the city hired us to do. So that is happening, and there's a long email chain to show that. We did include allowances in here, so as we go through, each of these represent different things about, how much shoring do we really need at the grit and fine screening facility? How much water are we gonna find? If you go out right now, you'll see Kansas River historically low levels. So we're probably not gonna have to see a lot of dewatering there, but there's been some years when the construction happened where there was so much water you didn't know what to do with it. So we're putting in those allowances. If they're not used, they're returned to the city. So they're clearly listed and quantified in that GMP value. You can see the results of our efforts. As the cost models progressed, we were able to see a reduction in contingency. When we first started, Crossland said, we have 15% contingency. That's a lot of risk. So we worked with them and said, where is that risk coming from? How can we define it? How can we refine it? How can we reduce it? And that's what we saw. So a steady reduction of contingency values as we get to the GMP. So this represents certainty. And again, that's a CMAR model, is certainty with things. As Joe had already mentioned, those contingencies allowances are included in that GMP price. The city has a lot of input. It's not just Crossland gets to decide to spend it. It's got to run it by Randy and staff and commission if necessary. And anything that's not spent is returned to the city. So that 21.7 that was currently out there is a maximum. but it could be less depending on how many contingencies we don't have to use. So where we ended, January 2026, it went more up in 90 than I think we all thought, but we worked with them to get that back down and say, what can we do to get it within the price range that the city's expecting to be able to spend? I know Randy's going to talk about the cost funding and the wastewater fund balances and how this fits into it. But with those efforts all working together, we're able to get down to $21.7 million number that you've seen. So we would consider that a success in getting into the goals that we talked about at the last work session. As far as the project goes, we started in 2023 with that design. In 2024, we did bring on Crossland to help look at our design. I mean, they build it, so they can take assumptions that engineers think they know about and like to think we know about, but the reality is if they're building it, they're the ones that provide that input. So they can look at the risk of it, the value engineering ideas, how can they build it better, and again, get that contingency down. Assuming everything goes as planned with the approvals and next steps, we would start construction here first quarter of 2026 and commission this in the end of 2027. So in the short term, Crossland did submit a GMP in December 2025. We reviewed the GMP with city staff. We had discussions today at the plant. We've had meetings already with more city staff about those. We would like to come back to you, pending the outcome of this session, with a GMP approval from the City Commission, and then be able to issue a construction amendment to Crossland. They currently have a contract for pre-construction services. It would be an amendment for construction services. That would allow them to issue subcontracts and get the process moving. And as Randy said, we're working on a construction services amendment based on what the final project is, and then mobilizing the project site in March 2026. And before I get to funding and handing that over to Mr. DeWitt, are there any questions at this point? Let's stop at key points. I know you wanted to see the cost progression model.
Well, the pricing summary was the one I was, I think when I first look at it, it makes me think that we're spending 21 million and then we're 24 million, and then when just looking at it, you know, and so it's just, it kind of maybe explain it for me and the public that, you know.
It's the progression of, you know, where do we think this project is, what elements have come up, what things at the plant have changed where we need to add additional scope, are there other projects that can get rolled into this? So as you saw the design progression and we started to get more detail of it, we're more certainty about what the costs were. And again, some of that incline represents projects that maybe weren't in the project originally defined in the project, but were added. So that shows a progression. And the ultimate progression is to get as low as possible by the time we get to 100%, but still meet the city goals that Randy reviewed in the beginning.
Yeah, and like one of the things Joe mentioned that has really driven this cost project is so much uncertainty. Just for example, you know, when we were in the 60% range, we would hope that from there on it would progress through, you know, in that estimated range. When we were learning more about tariffs and all the equipment that we needed to procure, a lot of it coming from overseas, there was a lot of cost concerns that we were going to end up paying 25%, 50% tariffs. And we don't know an exact number, but I think Joe could tell you just in general that it is affecting the cost of the project. So that's why this trend probably didn't follow the trend that we thought it would. But like Garrett said, the ultimate goal was to make sure that eventually we were within that desired range, and that's where we're at now. So.
I think you have the next slide.
Sure. So just in general, to talk a little bit about project financing now and how we're going to finance and fund this project. You know, we submitted a KDHE application for this project to include, to be included within the 2025 intended use plan. That is just KDHE's vernacular for what year the funding would be approved. At that time, KDHE had about $700 million in that federal funding pool. We were not selected to be eligible for that intended use plan. It's unfortunate. Well, at least unfortunate for us, but of all that money that was available, I think probably 70% of it or more went to 3 huge projects within Kansas, large wastewater project in Wichita, a large wastewater project in Johnson County for water, or for Johnson County wastewater, and I believe another large project for Wyandotte County. We were given an opportunity to apply for the next round, the 2026 intended use plan, but by that time we had heard from the state that the amount of funds becoming available for that program on an annual basis is going to be drastically reduced. The prior year it was so high because I think there was a lot of BIL funds injected by the federal government. But now there's a lot of, I think, a federal, I won't say earmarks by, legislators at the federal level to push their special projects that's really drawing down the funds that are available. So we anticipate in the coming years there could be as little as $25 million a year available for these type of projects, which is unfortunate because these are extremely low interest rate that we get for these type of projects when we utilize SRF funding. The downside of that is obviously you have to comply with BABA, the Buy American, Build American, Buy American, American Iron Steel, Davis-Bacon Act wages. So there's a reciprocal increase to the project cost because you have to deal with some of that stuff. So we are saving by not utilizing SRF funding, at least on the construction costs. Financing costs, it would have been much better to be able to go do that. I think typically it's prime -1 is what the interest rates are. The last time we presented a loan, we were sitting around 3%. So, but a couple years ago, it was less than 1. So that's a little bit of the history of the funding approach. So since those funds aren't available, talk a little bit about how we actually will fund this project or finance the project and the timeline. I mentioned to date, about $2.3 million worth of costs have been incurred. If we include that dredge procurement, we're a little bit more than 2.8. But in the next couple meetings, when we bring the GMP, soon after that, we'll come to you with Carollo's amendment. At that time, we anticipate bringing that final GMP, final project cost amount to you. We'll ask for a project authorization to issue temp notes. Finance department sells those temp notes two times a year. I think the next sale is going to be in June 2026. So typically those temporary note costs will last 3.5 to 4 years. Long-term wise, we will convert those to GEO bonds, similar, probably in June 2026, sometime after the project's completed, we'll go out and try to sell those bonds. We plan for those costs in the forecast using some pretty conservative percentages as far as projects plus a little additional contingency plus our anticipated rates 4 years down the road. That's unknown, but finance department can help us out with a little bit more about what those planning rates we use. But we typically, most projects that we bond are 10-year projects. Something this large, we were going to look at a longer term, like a 20-year. That would be a match of what the typical KDHE loan repayment period is. So we were asked to go back and reevaluate what a potential 15-year GEO bond would look like as well. So while we don't know those percentages, those interest rates, just based on working with the finance department and what we estimate those rates could be, we look at potentially $2.5 million a year in debt service payments starting in 2029 if we did a 15-year bond, and then $3.0 million if we do a 20-year. So it's a lot of interest, but we certainly, as much as we'd love to pay cash for this project, it's just not reasonable for us.
So Randy, typically the shorter the bond period, the higher the debt service. It looks like are those reversed? Why is the 15-year not higher than the 20-year?
I might have just got those. Those are probably reversed, sorry. So, yeah, good catch.
So it would, shorter term would be higher annual debt service.
Yes. Well, actually, yeah. Yeah, you're right. So 15-year bond would be $3 million and 20 would be 2.5. So, thank you very much. My favorite chart that you'll see many, many times, with me. And I'll just note, this is projected with the 20-year bond payments factored in. So this fund balance chart represents our actual fund balances over the last almost 20 years plus. What our actual fund balances are, the green, with the recommended fund balances at the time were red. As you can see, for many years, we were well below that. We've been fortunate. We've been building up that cash reserve in anticipation of this project, and just through having a few good budget years where we were making a little bit more than we had projected, and our costs were lower on an annual basis. Have a focus on that dark line is the 2026 beginning fund balance. I know there were some questions asked by Commissioner Van Lintel last week about where we thought we were going to land. Budgeted, we were looking at potentially $12 million for beginning fund balance for 26. I think we were projecting 12.5, and the reality, what it came in last week when we started looking at year end, finalizing some of those numbers, we're sitting at about $15 million. That is with the understanding that obviously there were some big projects in 25 that we didn't do, but we still plan on doing some of those. Those were cash projects. We also recognized that we had some extra cash, so that's why we decided to pay cash for that large piece of equipment we brought to you last week. And so just to reiterate, this is kind of what we're looking at for projections in the out years. Even with this project, we're going to kick in those first payments around 2030. And that a lot of that change and that fluctuation has to do with, that also coincides with some of our debt from our last plant expansion is coming off the books. So you're going to see a pretty good dramatic drop in our recommended fund balance. We also do project out unknown costs in our forecast. So 2028 and beyond, we typically would include some unknown projects or unknown expenditures that we don't know what they are, but we know we're likely expend those funds. So we do account for a little bit of that in the out years, but just showing the projections for the next 10 years, with this project on a 20-year note,
So,
we still look like we're going to be pretty good.
so 15 after the 700,000 we spent last week, roughly?
So technically that money would come from 2026 because we'll be procuring those vehicles in 2026. So, though there were funds set aside in 2025 and years prior for those purchases, or at least in one instance, we had intended it to be a lease purchase. So there was a large cash amount that was in those budgets to go to those. But just for an example, typically annually we do $500,000 in sewer rehabilitation maintenance. We just didn't have the ability to get to that last year. So $500,000 of that is that project, which, we will do that project in 2026. Those are just funds that we saved. So
It still seems like, with this information, I would strongly push for the 15-year bond.
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because that's really good news.
I was surprised to kind of see what the difference between those two options were, and take it for a grain of salt. Those are very preliminary estimates. We'll, in 4 years, we'll actually put those out for sale, and hopefully we'll get even better rates. So I'm right there with you. And when I saw that 15-year note, I thought that's probably a better option for us. So with that, we can answer any other questions. I know this is a discussion item. Sorry, you got a question, Larry?
Well, so you mentioned potential other projects. Are there any other major things you're
As far as
envisioning?
outside of this,
Outside of this, or?
oh, we'll have
hopefully-
plenty.
Huh?
We'll have plenty of projects, yes.
Plenty, okay.
Yes. A lot of that was detailed in some of the orientation slides, which we didn't get to go through a lot of that, but I would always be happy to sit down and talk about those with you. So.
I don't think it had prices though on it, did it? I don't think it had estimates.
Some had like CIP estimates or
Okay.
some, but I could happily provide that information. So just moving forward, we had originally hoped that we could have this GMP in front of you next week. We will probably have the price, but because of the time it takes to review the actual amendment document and make sure after this meeting and getting some direction and feedback from the commission, we will start working with Carollo and Crossland to just dial that in, turn that draft into a final document, which we should have very soon. So we should know the dollar amount. We'll work with Carollo on that next amendment amount, but we don't think that'll be until February. But we don't think we can get that actual contract document ready for the next meeting next Tuesday, so we've pushed that to February 3rd, I believe. But, we would love to, I'd love to get just a consensus or just general direction, how everybody feels in the project, so we know what to bring in the next couple weeks, so.
So I would just comment, there are some projects that come before the group that people have experience with and some knowledge about, but I think with this topic, we have to rely on the professionals to tell us what we need, and we have to trust that and go with it, so.
And this isn't the last project.
It's a pretty important topic.
Randy, I think this was a very thorough presentation.
Thank you.
When I reviewed it prior to, in preparation for tonight, I was very impressed and thought that it was very clear and laid out, even for a layperson, the process that had been pursued over these last several years. So kudos to all who were involved.
I mean, we've got a lot more technical information tucked in the back pages if you really want to get into the details.
Yeah.
Garrett can geek out on some of that. I know you would appreciate it.
Yeah, we're probably not gonna go out and start building our own sewer plant. But my only thought is that 2.5% contingency seems like it's pretty low. I mean, most
It is.
of these
I mean-
big projects, do you feel comfortable with that?
Garrett and I talked about that. I think typical range is 3 to 5% on
Yeah.
a project like this. I think there's a level of comfort. I mean, we're at $550,000. Obviously, the overall goal is to not touch any of that, but we'll probably find some things that we didn't think about that
Sure.
we want to use that on.
Well, I think too, if you get into it and there's things that really make things more efficient but cost a little more money, I think you should come back to us and we should
Well, I mean,
listen.
if that's a direction that you think we should go, then, we're more than comfortable looking at something closer to 5%. It's a process where we're constantly trying to reduce it. We actually didn't set that number. It's not required to be any certain number. That's what Crossland proposed, and I think that is just reflective of their level of confidence in the price that they provided. And I would go back to Joe.
No, I think, I'm delighted that it's 2.5%. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we don't cut out something that will cost us more 4 years down the road.
Sure.
Yeah.
If there's something that comes up that is absolutely that important, like I said, we would probably come back and ask for an amendment to justify it and explain why.
Thank you.
So I like the 2.5%. I think that's good.
2.6.
Yeah. Also, I would agree with Andrew that the 15-year, I'd prefer over 20, short.
Okay, that's why we presented it. That was a suggestion of the city manager's office. I think it was a good one. I don't like the idea of doing anything over a 10, it's just not feasible.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions for Randy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy, is that adequate?
I think so.
Direction for you.
And like I said, really, the only thing would be procedurally, I mean, we have an option, I guess, to bring the GMP proposal in its final form to you next week. We could probably push that. We would just have to ask for.
This item is slated for February
Yeah.
3rd. Thank you.
That's a,
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to remark on this item? Okay. Seeing no one approach the podium, we will proceed to the final item on our agenda, an update of activities in Aggieville. Thank you, Garrett, Joe, and Randy. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Wanted to take this opportunity this evening to dive into a few topics related to Aggieville. We've been working on a number of these over the course of several years, some decades, and we've reached a point where we want to provide you an update, an overview, and get some direction this evening. Trash and our alley approach is our first topic this evening. We will run into tax increment finance and provide an overview of where we've been and where we anticipate going. Public projects, obviously currently under construction with 12th Street, going to turn the corner here on Laramie soon. I believe we have that closed to traffic, and BHS is out there coordinating a lot of construction adjacent to the Hampton Inn. Morrow Street design and construction schedule. It is our final remaining significant project in Aggieville. And then parking. I do recognize we could talk for 2 hours about parking. I'm trying to create a bit of an overview tonight and gain some consensus from you in terms of just how we handle parking as we continue to be under construction. Trash consolidation, we've had a lot of conversations. This stems back even to 2016 and 2017. A lot of feedback we heard from the community via surveys and public meetings about making our alleys more accessible, more healthy, cleaner, safer for our pedestrians. We had, at one point in time, 7 different haulers running down our alleys, servicing 70 to 80 different trash cans. So we hired a company early in the process to look at the district and find some recommendations for how we could approach trash in Aggieville. We looked at a couple different options. One option is about an 18 to 24 month process where you can, as a municipality, designate an area really under the municipal control to provide trash service, to where we could isolate and have one hauler in Aggieville. There was some backlash to that. There are some folks that would like to have their own service and want to continue to pay for that. We have to weigh that with the number of trucks running down our public infrastructure in those alleys and the wear and tear and the cost to come back in and fix those alleys. Most of the alley work in the district is reaching a point where it's complete. I would say the northeast alley between 11th and 12th Street between Morrow and Bluemont is the alley that probably hasn't seen a lot of activity or action yet. Overhead lines are still there. Otherwise, we've removed the 2 alleys south of Morrow and have handled a lot of the infrastructure that is underneath that very thin, slim piece of roadway. It is jam-packed. I know BHS and even some property owners and businesses are in the audience. They could speak to this in greater detail if you'd like, but there's a lot jammed into those into those alleys in our district. So,
Jason, can I interrupt real quickly? Apologize. Just wanted to let our folks who are watching at home or on from their television that we know that our Comcast is not working. However, it is working on our website, and it is also streaming on Facebook with the audio. So apologize for that if anyone, I know they can't hear it, but just wanted to let folks know that there are other options. Thank you.
So we have looked into different options. Most recently, we've been instructed to go out for a request for proposals, looking for relationships to approach this infrastructure. We did select the only participant in that request for proposals in Howie's. They were willing to join the BHS Olson City team to further this infrastructure opportunity. We would anticipate this would take several months to get to a point where we could come back and recommend the necessary equipment and the infrastructure necessary. Preliminary, BHS has looked at this several months ago and have forecasted anywhere between $1.4 and $1.6 million to fully equip the district with compactors to the point where one is within a half block of roughly everyone, and that would require us to put 5 of these within the district. We're looking for feedback and reactions to that. Just a little bit more background on solid waste management. As I mentioned, we had a study done some years ago. We have actually 7 grease collectors today, 4 at that point in time. But we have several haulers. We would really like to look at an initiative with grease to convert a lot of hand carrying of grease to our alleys into these direct pump through the walls. Some of our businesses have done that. We're looking for those opportunities as well, in addition to the trash themselves. These are roughly the 5 areas within the alleys that we've talked about locating compactors. 4 of these areas, we either own parking lots, we have a good relationship with an owner. The alley number 1 is really to be determined, and we would rely on this next stage in the process to identify a spot potentially for a compactor. I do, BHS, Olson, they're in the audience. They could elaborate if you have questions specific about this. We are looking to take the next steps and identify what it's going to take again. So that design and pre-construction services, we have a scope from Olson and BHS of $100,000. We have Howie's that's agreed for the pre-construction services at $5,000. And again, looking at how we can approach our alleys and our trash in a more comprehensive, safe, and healthier manner. So that's the first item tonight. Happy to take questions really at any point in time. If I don't hear any, I'll move on to the next topic, and we can always address some of these at the end as well.
I'd have a question. Been up and down those alleys for 50 years, and they probably do need attention. However, what do our merchants down there, because they're going to end up paying for it, as I understand it, through assessments. So what's their response been, or is it too many cooks in the kitchen to come up with a clear answer?
I know the ABA is represented here this evening. They may have some reactions for you. I'm not aware of anything recently that's really been asked of the merchants. I would anticipate if we move forward with the design and pre-construction services, we're going to be able to provide them more information that they can react to. If the governing body would like us to stop now and test the 100 or so businesses down in Aggieville about their opinion before we execute 105,000, we're happy to do that too. It has been a while since we've got comprehensive feedback on trash. I do get back into that 16, 17 timeframe. We've probably had turnover, and we probably have different opinions. Even expressing the alternative to our merchants in terms of businesses, in terms of we're not going to force you to do this, but if it's part of your BID fees and it's part of an overall strategy on an annual basis to charge each of you, is that a service you're going to continue to also elect to have on your own? Or will you have your workers walk that half block and utilize that service? I understand if we want to stop and go gauge that reaction, happy to do that. We are at a position with a couple of these constructions occurring. If we stop and we delay too long, we're more than likely going to have to reapproach the Hampton and see if a compactor could still fit based on what they're going to choose to do, because the compactor won't be done by the time they're ready to open.
I think we've talked about the trash issue again and again over the years, and quite frankly, we're putting so much emphasis into making Aggieville a walkable, a pleasant place. When I walk over there, quite frankly, the alleys are disgusting. And, having the kids drag the trash out at closing time, that kind of thing, is really not a good idea. We've had these issues with trash haulers in Manhattan. We tried to have some curbside recycling, but we had 11 trash haulers, and no matter what we tried to do, it didn't make any of them happy. Howie's does do it now, but not only on a, so I'm fine with going forward with this and seeing if we can, make fix this right once and really make it look, attractive. And I see lots of kids walking down those alleys, and it's messy and smelly.
The 1.5 million doesn't really fix, it's fixing the alleys and putting the trash
Oh.
compactor?
No,
It is just,
it builds the enclosure and it buys the compactor and it goes through the process of actually installing it.
and that would come out of general fund or?
No, that would
be out of TIF?
Out of the TIF, yes.
Sorry,
Yep.
I'm tired, but.
You're good, you're good.
Would we like to bring Dennis up to just address if he has, what he has heard from business owners?
Good evening, thanks. As Jason just said, that we haven't gotten to the point to tell everybody this is what it's going to cost you. But the idea of, the only negative pushback we really got out of this originally from anybody was just the distance. And they were concerned that, there's not going to be a compactor in my alley. I've got to go according to another alley. Well, that's not how this is planned out. This is one where, like he said, no more than half a block. And so the idea of having something clean, safe, because we've done a lot of work through this redevelopment of, taking down the power poles and power lines and cleaning up all that stuff that's back there. The two pieces that really remain is really cleaning up the how we handle trash and how we handle grease. And so I think it feels very positive for us to do that. But we have not had a conversation with anybody about, here's what's going to cost you.
So, Dennis, my question would be clearly, some businesses produce a whole lot more trash than other businesses. And it's
I would
messier, and so, a few of them produce grease, certainly not all of them do. So, I mean, how do you equitably divide up that cost?
That's a great question. I know that there is a we'd heard before there was some sort of formula about different types of businesses, that they could kind of weigh that out. I suppose there's another way of looking at that is finding out what their current trash bill is as compared to their neighbor, et cetera. I don't know. That would be up to city and tell us what direction you're going to go. But I do know, it's going to be different based on not necessarily your square footage, but your type of business too. No doubt.
Don't go far.
So, and then how much, what's the cash balance of the TIF, Aggieville TIF?
It's in the slide presentation. We'll get there in a second. 2.8 million today.
Okay.
Yep.
And then when would this be hitting in a couple of years if we pushed forward, or would it be 1 year?
With the size of this, we could go down a path of temp notes. So it would give us 3.5 years before we'd have to start making a debt service payment or a cash payment to avoid the bonding. We would have that option to look at that before we execute the $1.5 million expenditure. So we get through the 105,000, you're gonna know where they're at, what their capacity, what we're looking at from Howie's in terms of service on a monthly, annual basis. We did hire a consultant. We do have data of what some districts have done across the country and how they assess trash. And it does depend on the type of business and the square footage of that business. There are ways we can come up with formulas and work with the district to see if those would be equitable.
It'd be my thought, since I understand there hasn't been any communication or interaction to any extent for some time, not spend the 105,000 until we do it. Set a deadline. Hopefully somebody in our staff who is familiar with the problem can come up with, here are two ideas. Here's what it's going to cost you. Here's what you're going to pay, when you're going to pay it. And then take a survey of those, and then we can make a decision. I think something needs to be done. Most of the merchants there, I think, are conscientious. They probably don't want garbage in their alleys. They probably don't want grease and oil and want safety. So they got to buy into it. But I think before we just say, here's what we're going to do, we ought to at least give them a chance to bark and bite a little bit on what the choices are. So,
So just explain to me here, so installing 5 trash compactors, and then it says eliminate need for private trash hauler receptacles in Aggieville alleys. Eliminate need for private trash haulers? Did I see somewhere where you're proposing the city takes that over?
Well, the 6 or 7 different haulers that are coming down the alley, we would eliminate the need for that with a centralized compactor.
And putting it out for bid to one?
And we did an
One private
RFP
company?
that also indicated that selection would likely receive the first 5-year contract from the city. That would obviously be up to you, but we forecasted if you join us early and you help us set this up, we'd be looking at a 5-year initial contract.
I certainly don't want to see the city take over.
No, and that's
No.
not the plan at
No,
all.
it's the-
We were fortunate to get the Howie's
Howie's
response.
was the one,
And you
Howie's
said it-
was the company that replied.
You said it takes 2 years to get that approval to do that.
Oh, that's if we, the city, are gonna go do solid waste collection and management.
Oh.
We could still contract it, we could still privatize it, Commissioner Fox, but we could actually say no one else can even come down here. That's that process. That's why it takes 18 to 24 months, because you have to go through several notices, publication, hearings. And that's an alternative that past commissions have said, let's not go that route, let's look at this alternative. You still may have 5 compactors here, but you may have more than one hauler down there. You could still have a business being like, I'm still signing up for my own trash because I don't want to walk a half block. I want to have it right here. I have space. There are areas in our district where you could argue they're in the right of way with their container. And there are other areas where people are paying an adjacent owner to put their trash can on their property because they have room versus they don't.
Maybe that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's some things, there's some horse trading and some things going on in the district, but there's also clearly some very skinny trash cans up against walls next in our alley.
Well, I'm sure this will get me yelled at, but the fewer trucks coming down there to collect trash, I think the better.
Yeah, and we haven't wanted to step on haulers' toes. We've really just wanted to be efficient. So we tried to get out there, but not everybody's equipped to handle compactors. We recognize that too. This is a topic that I think early and throughout, it's not one that is going to be easy. And if we desire an outcome, this is our opportunity. If we get Morrow done and we start exiting Aggieville, it's going to be hard to get back down there and do this.
I think too, it's not necessarily going to cost the owners of these establishments more for the compactor or the oil pickup, than they're paying now. I mean, we don't know exactly what it's, in fact, the oil thing might be cheaper if it's, if they don't have to take the oil and dump it someplace or whatever they're doing now. So I don't think we should necessarily think that it's gonna be that much more expensive to go this new, cleaner way.
I certainly anticipated, even if we spend $105,000, we're gonna have a debate in this room. We'll be able to educate and really give you all a scenario, but we'll also be able to give the businesses the scenario, and they will come to you with the same information and give you opinions. At this point in time, I would probably lean on our 3 partners to get a survey out to try to get as much information as we possibly could if we want to do that right now. We're either doing it now or we're doing it after we've spent the $105,000 and we know what it is and how much it's going to cost, because Howie's has quoted it. We know we can apply it in a number of ways. We can get that information out. Then you can get reactions and see if it's really what you want to do. If you don't want to spend the $105,000, I'll probably lean on those groups to do something within the manager's authority so we can at least have enough information they can react to.
Well, we've spent $50 million so far, so what's
Real
another
close.
100,000, huh?
Right?
well, my response is different. I'd say we have capacity to get some intelligent information to the merchants about cost design. And then if it seems like, even if it's a 50-50 draw, we can then make a decision what's going to be the best interest for all around, even though we probably could be wrong. I don't see any reason to pay anybody $105,000 to do a survey until we've at least given them our best information.
It's not $105,000 for a survey. It's,
The 105 is effectively doing that. It's designing the program, what's it going to be, giving us cost. And that, in my opinion, a survey that I think we can do initially to take care of. But that's just one opinion.
I'm kind of against this survey, but if you can give me more information to kind of show how they would add value. I mean, but to me, it's like cities should put it together and send an email out to everybody and what's your answers? I mean, that's.
And just to clarify, Commissioner, do you want us to engage with VHS, Olson, and Howie's to get $105,000 worth of information, or just get what we can and survey?
If we can do like important stuff for 20,000,
Okay.
you know,
Gotcha.
I mean,
Yep. That's the feedback I was looking for. Appreciate it.
So this 100,000 design and pre-construction, that's designing those compactors and knowing where you're gonna put them?
Yep.
And all that.
Yep. If we can. You know, it's gonna evaluate whether or not we think we know where we're going. Can we actually do it? Do we have the space?
So until we know if the businesses are in favor of doing that,
And we're fine taking information from all three entities, getting out there with the survey and seeing if this is something they'd like to do.
yeah.
all right, Jason, do you want to move on with your presentation?
Tax increment finance, we established a district in 2018. We had that first redevelopment plan adopted in 2019. We have undertaken several public projects. I would take this moment to just reiterate, our tax increment finance district has been solely created and plans adopted and implemented for public infrastructure. Tax increment finance districts, even in Manhattan or across the state, have utilized TIF revenues for a variety of purposes. State statute allows you to incentivize and create other ways to use dollars, but primarily in the TIF statute, there is a long list of public improvements that are eligible with those funds. We have isolated those funds. We have targeted these public projects. We have finished 6 of the 7 on the list. We have committed and spent $47 million within our district. We have one significant project remaining in Morrow Street from 11th to North Manhattan. We had an initial forecast before the TIF was even created, completed in 2017. That initial forecast estimated anywhere from $17 to $20 million being generated from the TIF. That has been modified recently with the growth and with the investment we have seen privately and publicly within the project area. I would anticipate another 7 to 10 million on Morrow. We have also designated half of that 70% of the half-cent sales tax that was passed in 2023. It's roughly 30 million, half going to North Campus Corridor in our education process in 2020 when that tax went on the ballot, and the other half coming here to Aggieville. This is a visual representation of what we have completed, what is underway, and what is in the future. The green was very impactful to the community and to the district. North Manhattan alone, Bluemont to Fremont, over $7 million invested on that one corridor. The 12th Street, Laramie Street project, also over $7 million being invested currently in that infrastructure. 2 blocks of Morrow, we may not spend $7 to $10 million. You could, but we may not. That's part of our process moving forward. There's going to be a design element. There's going to be a configuration of Morrow, but it is really next up. We got about a 9-month design process. We have probably, and Olson's here and BHS are both here, they could probably throw an estimate at the timeline on Morrow. It's going to be labor intensive. Every business along that street is going to need a new connection from a new water line that will stretch from North Manhattan to 11th Street. When we did this on North Manhattan, the businesses on the east side of the street all also required new connections. Fortunately, we were able to keep those sidewalks open to those businesses. McCown Gordon managed that section of Aggieville, and BHS is doing a great job on 12th Street, maintaining service and access to those businesses, all the while making new connections with water lines. So Morrow is next. It's going to need some time and attention. This is the original TIF study and analysis showing you in 2017, the district had a total value of just over $60 million. That $60 million in value remains as the base for Aggieville TIF. That money remains in a payment on an annual basis to the city, the county, and the school district. And that stays that way, and it runs out through that 20-year period. Anything we gain in increment over and above the base established in that initial year is what comprises the TIF in that fund. It's been modified recently based on projects that are on the horizon. We've had a number of investments within the district itself. We've realized an increase in our original projections. We see estimates that are surpassing that 17 to 20 million. We did allow for a 2.5% annual growth rate, which in our Aggieville district, you can see back to 1998, went from 20 million to 60 million in a matter of right around 20 years. So I don't think 2.5 is too aggressive. I think there's significant realization of growth in our Aggieville district. I would also make the comment, back in 2016, 2017, Aggieville had land transferring and being sold for roughly $50 a square foot. That is 5 times the amount and 2.5 times the amount of what we saw in downtown redevelopment between 2003 and 2012. So it is the highest land values in our community, and it continues to be a very sought after district and a piece of property. Our Aggieville TIF, as I mentioned earlier, has a balance today of $2.8 million. We are realizing just over $1 million now annually, and if you run 2025 out through 2038, we hope to realize close to $2 million on an annual basis in the near term. The Hampton investment and the residential will add significantly to this, and we would like to see even more private investment within this district to help with that TIF and that future debt service to those public projects. This is a map that was created by Community Development. I think it's very indicative of just when you see the darker blue colors and where they exist in the district, and also look back at this map in terms of what infrastructure is complete and where people have put their investments. We do anticipate a darker shade appearing on the eastern side of this thing with the construction of Morrow, but possibly even working with property owners in terms of how can we encourage and incentivize potentially more private development in the district. It will only help offset the cost of the public infrastructure and possibly even relieve some of the burden on the sales tax that runs from 2023 through 2032. There's some significant projects obviously underway, residentially and commercially, and we would hope there'd be more on the horizon. As I mentioned, 12th Street, Laramie Street under construction. You do have members of BHS in the audience if you're looking for specific updates. They have been meeting projected timelines, and again, they are looking for a fall of 2026 opening of the hotel, which means they are targeting fall of 2026 for 12th Street and Laramie completion adjacent to that hotel. Morrow, 2 blocks. We have an estimated 80 parking stalls that are on Morrow. 50 of them are angled, roughly 30 parallel. Just rough number of 40 business front facades that are on Morrow. This will be, again, the most significant 2-block stretch in intensity of businesses being impacted by a new Morrow Street. We had a number of options in the 2017 Aggieville vision. Olson has updated those. I'll run through those quickly tonight, just to give you an idea. This is Morrow as it basically exists today. You've got 2 10-foot sidewalks on either side, the north and the south. You've got a 17-foot angled parking. You've got parallel parking and a 15-foot drive lane. The note underneath is something that we need to understand, embrace, and discuss. The fire code today would require a 20-foot drive lane. We have a 15-foot drive lane today. That 5 foot is going to impact somewhere if we go with the concept that basically goes back with what we have today. It's either going to impact the angle parking, it's going to impact the parallel parking, or it's going to impact the 10-foot sidewalks. There are a number of ways to approach this, but I wanted to make that clear because I do think I hear a lot from folks of, hey, why don't we just go right back with what we have? We do have a limitation with the fire code in doing so. This is the option that we talked about quite a bit. Put the 20-foot drive lane down the middle and make the rest, from a pedestrian standpoint. That it's going to be controversial not having parking in front of our businesses. It's an option that surfaced and gained some traction. The 20-foot drive lane, even if somebody said, let's make it 100% pedestrian, that 20-foot drive lane would be necessary. So I want to make that clear. We have to have a path for emergency vehicles and fire trucks. So we couldn't encumber that 20 feet with amenities. So we're always going to have that 20-foot drive lane in our concepts. This one allows for a 16-foot drive lane. Again, we would need 20 on the angled stalls. So you get into 12, 14-foot sidewalks, it's not necessarily going to work all that well. We're going to have to shrink those sidewalks if we want angled parking and a drive lane. They'll have to go back down to that 10-foot in order to get us that 20-foot width for that drive lane. Conceptually, again, we're just trying to show you all the options. 20-foot drive lane, 2 parallel. You still get 10 on a sidewalk, 12 on another. Something to consider. And then here's one with just parallel and a drive lane. Obviously, you start to really widen your sidewalks in that scenario. There are parking counts on each of these, and as I mentioned, 80 in the existing. You can see the numbers change. This one would still have 65. And I think you're losing the stalls because Olson has looked at this from an amenity zone, just like we did on North Manhattan. We don't have we don't have angled stalls in every one of the slots. We took space to create flower beds, seating areas, streetscape, landscape lighting, amenities. They're assuming, obviously, some amenities in these concepts. Wouldn't have to, but they have, and they've brought those parking stall numbers down. 45 in this scenario over 80, 57 in this scenario over 80, 32 in this scenario over 80. So in all of these, you do see a reduction. Again, you didn't have the streetscape, the flower beds, and the seating. You could come back with something from a parking standpoint that's probably going to be pretty close. More than likely, if we get back into that scenario where we still want 80, we are going to need to shrink our sidewalks in order to give us the drive lane. So we got some tough conversations to have. What are we shrinking? What are we growing? What amenities do we want? It's going to take some time. When this body is ready to make that call and give Olson that direction to go design, we'll bring 30% back Images will be available. If you want 2 or 3 at that point in time, we can have 2 or 3 options. And then you could decide after you see streetscape and the way these things lay out and give the district and the community an opportunity to weigh in. So there's a variety of ways we can handle this moving forward. I think more information is obviously necessary. If you want to eliminate one of the 5 or 2 of the 5, now that narrows our focus and direction back to Olson to create some concepts. So tonight was just an introduction. We can clearly come back. We can talk about it, in February some more and get direction. It's just when we make that decision, we got 9 months of really time needed to finalize designs, and then a GMP construction price would follow after that design.
So are we married to BHS and Olson?
We're married to Olson for design at this point in time.
Okay.
We are not married to BHS on the construction. That'll be at your discretion.
And it seems to me whatever we do, what's going to be critical is that they in fact be instructed and required to fast diligence to get the project done, not 1.5 years or 2.5, Anderson or others. I don't know what it ought to be, but
We'll look to them for strategies to give us what it costs to do a shorter timeline and what would possibly stretch that timeline, either cost-wise or just resource-wise. So we would look, having a group like BHS or McCown or really any contractor available early can help us realize cost and timelines better than our engineering firm.
Do you feel like the parking garage discussion should also kind of be taking place at the same time?
Yep, it's next. Yep.
So personally, I go to Aggieville quite often. I would hate to see the parking eliminated totally. I'm really not in favor of that. But given that 20-foot lane, it looks like we either need to maximize either angled on one side or 2 parallel on each side, whichever can produce the most spaces and easiest to use. In some of these drawings, I think we're placing an awful lot of emphasis on setting around tables out in the sidewalk, and I don't think there are that many businesses that would do that, to put that much emphasis on having those wide as sidewalks. So those are just a couple of things.
Yep.
that-
And I appreciate those. In each segment, we've tried to really concentrate on those businesses to get their reactions,
Yep.
to inform you all of just where they're at. I think it's been a little bit to our benefit to deal with smaller groups in other sections of Aggieville. You got a big group here. You're gonna have a lot of opinions on what should happen, what needs to happen, what must happen for them to survive.
I'd sort of like to see us talk about the downtown amount of parking that we have, because it's really quite limited, and it doesn't seem to be discombobulating people terribly. Perhaps those businesses, that serve food, and we could have those sort of small jut outs the way, they do on points, just the small into, if you want to have your restaurant have a thing outside. Because, obviously the clothing stores and the bookstores, they don't probably need it. I think the design could talk about that perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
the success, in my opinion, will be speed in getting it accomplished. Whatever you do, it's going to, I think they can pour concrete and dig a water line a whole lot faster than letting them work every 3 days. If they do it, the requirement is they have a crew there every dang day and they're working. And if they can't do it, we need to find a contractor in Topeka, Kansas City will come and do it. I think the salvation for Aggieville is to get it done, not to bleed it to death.
Jason, I think we need to be clear that we're not simply replacing the street and the sidewalks, but all of the infrastructure that's underneath the streets as well.
I agree, and that's why I say, I don't think we have a choice of doing it, because if the water lines don't run water, we have a bigger problem. And so, but I think if the requirement to do it is get it done, that we get it done. And I don't think it's gonna be able to do one lane and then have to do the other side. It's gonna be one that's gonna be kind of hell on wheels, temporary sidewalks, what's gonna be left, so they have some access. But the test is getting it done and having it designed.
It is part of the reason I put 7 to 10 million on here. It's a 2-block stretch. No 2 blocks has cost us 7 to 10 million in Aggieville yet. But if we're gonna put the gas pedal down and have people working like ants every day, that is the reaction I kind of anticipate from our contractor. And we'll know that. Well, a contractor. If we expect it to be done in 6 months or 9 months, then they'll shoot us a price to get that done in that amount of time.
No, I'm thinking 3 to 4 months.
There you go.
I mean, realistically, the backhoe doesn't take a month to dig a line from 2 blocks.
And I do think there's some options on Morrow that we haven't experienced in other places. We have buried a lot of different infrastructure on North Manhattan, in our alleys on 12th Street, that is different than Morrow. We're gonna need to understand what infrastructure that is and how we're handling it and what options we have. We will definitely explore the least impactful scenario.
Yes, for me, it's C, fast, and I know we have to spend a little bit more to go fast. And, well, maybe a lot more, I don't know, that's the.
Thank you.
I do think that we should not be doing this lightly. When I think of the things that happened to us on Points, and, you know, we started doing water lines and things, and we found basements and found water too at one point. So, you know, this isn't simply digging a hole and putting a pipe in. This is much more complicated than that.
And we realized this even on 12th Street recently, where Fat Shack, Annie Mae's, and Shaggyville all shared a water line. That is not ideal for your businesses to just pay a bill collectively. Most people like to meter and monitor what they use for water and pay for that. So, yeah, we had to go back through, and BHS was a great partner to work with those, not only the owner, but the businesses themselves, to get them set up with different infrastructure. I don't know what we're gonna find on Morrow. Some of these businesses may know more than we do right now in terms of how they're served and how they're paying their bills.
Sarah, are the old tracks for the trolley cars still there? Do we know that?
They might, well, some of the folks in the room crossed Morrow at 12th Street, so they may know what's there. North, or at least east and west of there.
Let me throw one more grenade out there. So would this be competing with the fire training facility on dollars, or this would be totally just TIF?
Yes, just TIF.
So, Jason, on the financing, I would hope that you could come up with a kind of a cash flow summary. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at, we've got $50 million spent so far. We're looking at maybe another 10 between the trash and the Morrow Street. So 60 million. We've raised 2.8 million to date on the TIF. We have 13 years left. If it goes, I mean, this last year was $1 million we collected.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at 2 million a year times 13, that's 26 million.
Yep.
Plus the existing almost 3,
2.8,
so it's
yep.
29 million. And how are we paying for $60 million financed over 10 or 15 or 20 years or whatever it is, so.
Yeah, the total revenues that we've forecasted, the 30 roughly in the sales tax that's out there, that's a 10-year tax. That money's obviously coming in a lot faster and accumulating in the bond and interest fund. The TIF, obviously a little longer. We have put $6 to $7 million in public infrastructure in Aggieville. That's a conversation I've had with Brian and Randy in the last few days. It's not an expense that I really anticipated needing the utilities to pick up. If we have enough with TIF and we have enough with the sales tax, then we wouldn't necessarily need to depend on our water, our wastewater, and our storm funds. But those are the cushion I would anticipate for Aggieville if needed. And as we start to bond these things and our bond and interest starts to realize that debt, and TIF is progressing and the sales tax is progressing, it is the next source of revenue that we would be looking at and bringing forward as an area to provide that cushion.
That is the real question I have, is what is the resulting debt service of all of this after we start?
Yeah, and it staggers,
these.
right? I mean,
know it staggers.
you've got the
It's hard.
garage out there that went basically first. We've got 14th and Laramie between 14th and North Manhattan that obviously went second. But we can create that for you, the cash flow in the years and that annual debt service. Happy to do that.
Jason, you want to move forward?
Last topic really highlights on parking. Again, I think we clearly recognize how vital Morrow Street and that 2-block area is for our businesses. Parking, as it exists today, and how parking will be configured moving forward. There is going to be a period of time where that construction is going to impact the district. This past June, we did shut down Morrow for a month. And we also correspondingly took all charges and all registration out of the garage. As soon as that was opened back up, we were approached and we did agree to not charge in the Aggieville garage Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You still had to register on the Park Mobile app. In May, in June, we saw a significant increase at the garage. And as soon as we required people to start registering again, we saw a decline. So it's clearly a site and a resource that people will use. They're obviously frustrated with paying and they're frustrated with Park Mobile. We've always had a priority of keeping it safe and clean and secure, and that requires people. It just does. We have a great camera system in there. We have RCPD with a substation in Aggieville, very responsive. But our people walking around, working peak times and monitoring do an excellent job of keeping it safe and clean and secure. That has a cost. And we recognize that cost, and we also subsidize that cost tremendously in the general fund to operate our parking services. We've talked about transitioning away from the Park Mobile app and allowing the garage to be used like it was last June. No charge, no registration. We wouldn't need to keep the 48-hour rule, just like we do every other public parking stall, whether that's on street or in a parking lot. We don't want them to be long-term, and we'd like them to turn over, and I'm sure the businesses down there would like to see them turn over too. Is that something we want to do sooner rather than later? We are monitoring 2-hour violations. We do that in Aggieville and downtown. You get beyond 2 hours during Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, you do get a ticket. Is there a combination that you would prefer and how we address the number of stalls that are available in Aggieville? It's really the conversation we're trying to get to tonight. Recognizing we have over 660 stalls, 450 in that garage. We have that one remaining lot. As I mentioned, the 2-hour and the number of on-street. Expenses, this is 2024, and you can see our total expenses. This is all of our parking services. So this crew is Aggieville downtown. They get into some colored zones. They're out there with their license plate recognition vehicles. We're no longer chalking tires. We're driving by and taking pictures, or at least registering your license plates. So we are spending just over $500,000 on an annual basis on people. We do some contracts, and obviously it takes fuel and other things to run our services. And we looked at a $763,000 actual expense in 2024. We had to transfer just over $445,000. Our revenues from parking services were just over $305,000.
So the 763 is for the garage as well as the on-street parking in Aggieville?
Expense-wise,
Yes,
it's for everything in Aggieville and everything downtown.
and downtown.
Correct.
So what is the cost for Aggieville? Ballpark, half of it?
Yeah, you could look at it that way. The revenues aren't that way, but you could look at the expense that way.
And so our revenues, that's for both places, also downtown and Aggieville?
We don't have parking fees downtown in 2024. So that 136 grand is directly related to the garage.
So we're losing money being on guard and worrying about
Oh,
parking?
for sure. For sure. There's not money being made, but again, I'll get back to safe, secure, and clean. That costs money. This is what we did in 25. Just these numbers are fairly new. Got these updated. So we spent just over $800,000. And we had $280,000 in revenue. And our parking fees went down, and our citations obviously went up a little bit. But we generated a lot less revenue with the free 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and the free June in 2025.
Jason,
Yep,
does this include the contract with the Hilton Garden Inn?
no.
When does that go into effect?
It is in effect, and the revenue, it may have one payment, Mayor, I'm sorry. It may have one payment,
Okay.
but it's not significant in terms of what we're looking at from a revenue standpoint. Again, trying to educate you, get you to a point where you realize what's going on in both districts. The revenue streams that we did have at one point in time and have declined because of the relaxation. Do we want to just go ahead and relax and get that district to a point where coming in and out of it is really not as burdensome? It's going to have an impact on our financials. You did do a budget amendment at the end of the year, the two of you, three of you watched it and witnessed it. We did move some transient guest tax out of the transient guest tax fund into the general fund to help offset some of these costs as part of that move. It could be a source that we tap into to cover some of these costs.
When we adopted downtown or Aggieville, was there any prospectus of what the cost would be so we knew in the future, and are we even close to those projections?
Cost-wise, we're actually under what we anticipated. We're not keeping it fully staffed like we fully envisioned. Revenue-wise, though, we have made some concessions, and even in 25, you can see there's a half of a revenue stream coming in.
But when we build it, did our consultants tell us they'd pay for themselves at least in maintenance and upkeep and safety?
No.
They didn't tell us that?
Oh, they told us it's not going to.
Oh.
Yeah, we knew it going in.
So personally, I mean, we know, we have a track record now of how much this is costing us as is. I personally feel like we are inconveniencing and damaging the businesses so badly down there now, and will be even more when we do Morrow, that this seems like a no-brainer to at least let people park free in the garage to try to get them down there. So we don't have to worry about, okay, do we need to be signing up, but we're not gonna be charged? I think that's part of the problem with the garage is you're not charging, but you still have to sign up.
Right.
And people are confused by that. At least the old geezers I talk to are.
Yeah.
So they don't wanna go in there.
I will send out a parking report for 2025. It's glaring when we removed the restrictions in the Park Mobile app. People will park in there.
Yeah,
Significant.
yeah.
And,
If you know, you can just go in and
yeah,
not worry.
we obviously tracked all the daily visits, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. You remove those restrictions and those obligations, and people will use it.
How often is it filling up? the
Not very
parking
often.
garage?
Not very often. Filling up with paid patrons or just filling up?
Filling up when it's free even.
I mean, our maxes are, Thursday nights, Friday nights. I mean, that's when you see the biggest paid user coming in. There are events where we back off charging, and the garage will fill up. St. Patrick's Day Parade, Aggieville Showdown, big events that are happening. Game day weekends, but those are paid consumers at that point in time too.
Then the businesses don't care. They're fine with it.
Jason,
Yes.
in the expense list, is the annual cost, the debt service in there?
No, it's not.
So that,
Neither downtown nor Aggieville is part of our operational budget from a debt service perspective. That's in the bond and interest fund.
okay, so but we should, in the back of our mind, know that we are paying X amount of dollars to debt service for those two.
Yeah, and that's part of that 47 million we talked about earlier in TIF and the sales tax.
Yeah.
Hopefully generating enough
But I
to
think,
cover those.
just to be clear on parking service
Mhm.
expenses, I do think it's very important that we have staff down there in Aggieville, because kids get a little drunk, and they are, especially girls are, can be endangered in parking structures. So I think we do have to have, somebody kind of keeping an eye on it.
We do have a good history behind us, the lighting, the cameras, the, even the arrests that have been made for really nonviolent things. But RCPD has followed up, has camera footage, and they have arrested quite a few people who are committed crimes down there. So I do think that word is out, there's an understanding. It's not an area you really run to commit a crime. You're gonna be very visible on our camera system.
Sure. I just would hate to see us cut the personnel budget
Yep.
that's, I think, it's really important that we, as a commission, do have a clear understanding of the costs of, these things, and that's why I'd sort of like the debt service in there too. Okay?
The other concept with the garage that came up and some conversations, we started meeting with Dennis and the ABA and a few other members in terms of, okay, Park Mobile, we recognize the cost, the charge to enter, obviously we recognize as well. Some other ideas came up in terms of going to a 45-degree angle instead of the head-in 90-degree. That would make those stalls wider. You would also lose a few stalls. There's an efficiency with head-in 90-degree, but they are 8 feet in width, and a larger vehicle or even smaller vehicles get really tight. This would allow for angled to occur on the ramps. It would keep the head-in on the end. We'd be looking at about an 80 stall reduction overall. And you would have, you'd be backing into the lane of traffic that's probably gonna take you further up. If it's empty, obviously you can back all the way out and turn around and move, but if it's full, you're gonna end up going to the top to really turn around, to find enough width to do. So that's about the only inconvenience, to go angled versus 90, you back out and you can head the other direction. So this we could do in-house. I've talked with Brian about this. Our staff, our resources, pretty minimal cost, under 10 grand to get this done, if this is something you all thought was a good idea.
I think it's a good idea, but not until after Morrow is done. I don't want to, don't want to take away spots from the parking garage until.
That'll be about 3 years before we're probably done with Morrow. And again, I'm just trying to make this place more accommodating, more easy to get in and out of. But if the rest of you don't want to do anything for 3 years, that's fine too.
Well, obviously, we're not using all the spots, so losing 60 isn't gonna make a blooming bit of difference.
Right.
And it's gonna be better than nothing.
So I personally would be in favor of the angle. I know I've parked in there with my pickup, and you got to do a 3 or 4 point turn to get into a parking space. The other comment I'd have on our parking spaces is their widths. I've had comments from other people, and I notice it. they're barely wide enough for your vehicle,
Right.
let alone opening the doors. So if we're a little narrow on our parking spaces.
Yep, and we were trying to accomplish as many in this as we could.
Yep.
We knew we were impacting on-street parking. We knew we were impacting parking lots in Aggieville. But again, feedback and the opportunity to do this, not that expensive.
Personally, I'd be for doing it right away, not 3 years from now.
We can see how it goes. We can see how it goes.
I concur.
Okay. There you go. I'm ready to move on if you are. So yeah, just in recap, trash, we will take a step back from the 105 based on the feedback I believe we got this evening. We'll go do surveys. We'll get a little bit of information for less than 105 and see if we can get some reactions. Morrow, not a lot of feedback yet. If you want to take some time tonight, that's up to you. We can always come back. You can let this digest and percolate and get some feedback from the community, and we can be back within 2-4 weeks and see if you've got some ideas and thoughts. Parking, Park Mobile app, sooner rather than later. Okay with that? Okay, and then we'll look to repaint some of this.
On the trash issue,
Yep.
how soon do we need to let the hotel know what we're thinking about? Because I really want to see those compactors in the alleys, quite frankly.
I'll talk with the hotel. If they're not ready to move forward with the compactor without the city, maybe they'd at least be willing to leave enough space for that compactor. We built the enclosure over on Little Morrow in a way where we could put a compactor in. We don't have one in there yet. It's a bunch of wheeled dumpsters, and we would expect the hotel would probably just be fine with the wheeled dumpsters until we make a decision, but we'll have that conversation.
Yeah. You know, one thing that you get in the alleys with all the trash everywhere is crows.
Yes, we do.
There are a lot of crows.
The
that-
migration every year to Aggieville.
I do think it's important to hear from the Aggieville businesses on both the trash and parking on Morrow, width of sidewalks,
Yep.
what do they think's important?
And
All those sorts of things.
we can re-engage on the design. We can use this as the forum, and you can get that feedback directly. If you'd like us to go create a small process, we can do that too. It's going to require resources and time. Aggieville has been under construction for a long time. Morrow is significant. The sooner we can get this decision made, the sooner we can get it under construction, the sooner we're out of there. I say 3 years, Commissioner, just because I think this year is going to take a while for us to get to a decision and final design. I would like this commission to execute the construction contract in 2027, so we're not dealing with a new commission in 28 who seems to think you all didn't do it very well. So I really would like to aspire to get that contract awarded in 27.
I think with the compactors, if you could give the inhabitants of Aggieville a clue as to what that would cost, it may not be much, may not be more expensive than what they're paying now. It's just the initial investment.
Yep, we'll look into it.
One observation about Morrow, I do not believe it ought to be a pedestrian only. So you can take one of them off the map and maximize the parking. And I do know what the fire marshal's rules are, but their trucks aren't 20 feet wide. And I know they need to move hoses and they need to have connections and access, but I don't think that's an enforceable offense if we don't have it 20 feet. So if it's 18, that might be okay, but I'm just saying it has to have some parking and traffic through there.
I do not think that's a very good example to set for other businesses or individuals in our community to have the city violate the fire regulations.
Well, we have a number of those that don't comply with those requirements now on our public streets.
We do, and I wanted you to be aware of it tonight. I really don't think we're gonna bring you all options that violate the fire code. we might be able to come up with scenarios that are leaning into, maybe it's not 20 everywhere. Maybe we're majority 20, but we may not be everywhere. We'll work with them. We did work with them on Laramie. We got some really good options for Laramie, but it was the same conversation. You got to have that width. The outrigger's got to have a place to go. You got to be able to serve those businesses that are not sprinkled on either side of Morrow, for the most part. Some of them may be if they've renovated, but yeah, we got to keep them safe.
I think there are many of us in the room who were here, living here when that fire did occur in Aggieville. I know it's probably 20 years now, but given the construction of those buildings, given the age of those buildings, that could be an absolute catastrophe. And so I think anything we can do to ameliorate that situation, it's incumbent on us to do that.
I don't think we want to spend a lot of money on surveys, and we certainly don't want to take a lot of time on it, but I'll bet Dennis and his folks can come up with some good questions. And
Who is the person who's been doing like the Aggieville updates? I'm blanking on her name.
Access Aggieville.
Yeah.
I
Would that
believe.
be a vehicle where we could contract with them for something small, manageable, a few number of questions? We have a fixed audience here. It's not, we don't need random surveys, et cetera, et cetera.
I would love 50 emails saying which A, B, C, D, and then also, do you want to do a pause on the Aggieville construction, or do you want to go? And those, that's what I would think about.
Andrew, I would not put a question out on pausing construction, given that we have the funding now, given that we are 6 of 7 projects through. I know the businesses have been hugely impacted, but kicking this can down the road is only going to make it more expensive. It's only going to make it more susceptible to pipes breaking and causing significant damage and cleanup rather than being proactive in keeping this project on schedule.
I understand your position. I still would like to hear that feedback in case, but it might be 40. If I get 50 emails, it might be 40 that say go, go, go. You know, it might, I don't know.
I think you'll get that feedback. I really do.
We do still have an opportunity for public comment. Certainly I recognize a number of Aggieville business owners here tonight. Is there anyone who would like to get up and make your opinions known now?
Cam Ward, I'm with the ABA board, and I'm at the Alms Group Real Estate at 1202 Morrow Street. Couple quick things. I think I hear this, but I would appreciate it if the commission did not consider any options for Morrow Street that eliminate all the parking. We have a lot of businesses that depend on that. On those 2 blocks that we're talking about, there are currently 4 ADA stalls that we had to request to get added back after last rounds of construction. So that's a concern I have as well. Those stalls are always full 7 days a week. So we have to have accessible parking. We need parking on the street, but it sounds like you guys don't want to consider that. The other quick thing I wanted to address, and this is a personal opinion of mine and not reflective of any other business or ABA, but I understand the concern with how we have to bid out these projects with different construction companies. What I'll tell you is just feedback from my experience working in Aggieville for the last 8-9 years. We have never had a construction experience that has gone as easy as when BHS is working down in the district. They communicate very effectively with us, and knowing that those dollars that our businesses and our property taxes are raising to go into the TIF, knowing that those are local folks working down there and that income is going to Manhattan families is really important to me. So I understand you have to do something that's cost effective, and I don't work for BHS and they didn't ask me to be here tonight, but I've seen so many different construction projects, seen different companies that are a huge pain for us, but they've been great to work with, and I think that the commission needs to consider that piece and how we move forward with making sure that we're working with the construction company that's accommodating, keeping our businesses open, communicating, and supporting Manhattan families. So, thanks.
Thank you for your
Cam,
comments. And
question, do you have thoughts on widening the sidewalks and having seating areas?
I don't, because it doesn't impact my business, so I don't think my opinion on that matters, but parking and especially accessible parking is super important to me, so, thanks.
thank you, and I appreciate your feedback about BHS. I think there are times when people hear the same names of construction companies and contractors coming up repeatedly, but in part that is because we're trying to engage local companies and keep those construction dollars here in Manhattan. Yes.
Evening, Commissioners. I'm Vincent Tracy. I'm a permanent resident here in Manhattan, 304 Knoxbury Drive. And my reality is there's damn few times when I go to Aggieville, I can park anywhere close to the business I'm going to. I'm having to walk 2.5, 3 blocks in order to get to that business and then back again. So I don't believe a pedestrian-only close the street completely will ever work. But I do believe you can put a 20-foot drive down one side of the street and swap to the other side. That gives the fire department, I am a retired fireman as well, an opportunity to be able to put more than one piece of apparatus at a fire if it's needed. Our problem is we don't want to walk. People want to be able to just drive in. With the swap from side to side, or even just a 20-foot down the center, you can always put a cutout for the ADA requirements so that for each half block, there's a parking space that ADA people could be able to use. Kansas City, a couple of other large cities that I was fortunate enough to be in, the parking garages, if you made a purchase at the business, your parking was free. You didn't have to register. There was somebody at the gate when you're trying to get out to either collect your fee for having been in the parking garage or to go, yep, you purchased something in town, have a nice day. You're not going to solve it all today, but hopefully you'll open this up to not only the businesses that are there, but the permanent residents that use those businesses here in Manhattan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would you sign in at the podium? And Cam, did you sign? Okay, thank you.
Alan Rizza with the board and Cold Stone Creamery. I just wanted to talk about what you guys are deciding with the parking and Park Mobile. I think a really important thing is whatever decision you guys come to, you try to stick with it, because I go to all the Aggieville lunch meetings, board meetings, and all that, and I feel like around that June time, I get customers come in and go, hey, what do I do with the parking garage? It's like, well, I think it's free. No, it's only free 9 to 5. It's very confusing, and even a well-informed person doesn't really know what's going on, so let alone a person that comes to Aggieville once a month or something. And then, yeah, just on the parking on the street, as much stalls as possible, because back when I was in college, I'd drive through Aggieville, no parking. I'm going to go somewhere else for dinner or something. So, thanks.
Thank you, Alan. He did already.
Hi, Scott Sieben, Kites Bar and Grill, 1908 Indiana Lane. Thank you to the new commissioners. Thank you for jumping into this with us. I've owned Kites since 2018. We've been dealing with construction since 2018. So obviously, don't put a pause on anything you guys are doing. I know it's a lot, but this is what we need to get done in this district. It's obviously needed these improvements for longer, and then we're just now getting to it. So please don't stop what we're doing down in the district. We'd like to get through this as quick as we can. And like I said, I appreciate you guys' time on the board, and thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to, Dennis Cook with Aggieville Business Association. Just to recap on all those, you know, the consolidated trash, that just kind of puts the great emphasis on what we're trying to do down there. I mean, we've spent, as he talked about, you know, how much money we've spent down there already, and then to leave it kind of unfinished, I think would be a mistake, and this is something that that would really help us out. Obviously, Morrow Street, the completion, I would agree that the sooner the better. We've been through enough, and the sooner we can get back to just doing the things that we do. And I can tell you, you know, I've been the director for 6 years, and what we've tried to do is we've worked really hard at keeping up all of our occupancy, you know, and we're running, you know, over 95%. But, you know, these things do take a toll on people. It really hurts them. And virtually, you know, the bulk, the huge bulk of our businesses in Aggieville are local. And, you know, they're not changed from someplace else. And so it's very important on what we do. You know, now there is that one option that I've talked to Mark Basham with Olson about, that we just haven't gotten this in here yet, that we don't need parking on Morrow, but we do need the moving sidewalks and the dome. So if you get to work on that one, that would be great. Andrew says no. Okay. Well, it is important, and that we make sure everybody has a way to get around. And one parking garage just on one end, even as we start to as we consider what we're going to do on Morrow, the other thing we got to be thinking about is, in the original vision, was a parking garage at both ends, something we need to talk about too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis.
So Dennis, I do think we need your help and Scott's help back there with this trash situation and figuring out what the best way to handle it is. 'Cause
Don't worry, we'll push everything we need to do. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Amber Starling, 408 Houston Street. I own a business downtown Manhattan. I regularly walk 2 to 3 blocks to get to my business. It doesn't really bother me. A, it leaves room for more tacos. B, it is not that much different than when I have to park in the middle of the Walmart parking lot and then walk all the way back to the Milk. It's about the same distance. I have very questionable hips, mostly titanium, but I do have 2 working legs, and I understand that walking to shops is how urban centers work. Businesses need, appreciate, and benefit from foot traffic. Even so, I'm not a proponent of getting rid of all of the parking. But I do want to challenge us to look at some of the other options that include less parking. Here's why. Why did we keep the downtown dining platforms after the pandemic, even at the cost of parking? It's because more seating equals more sales tax revenue. You know what doesn't generate sales tax income? Free street parking. It actually only costs money. There is parking in Aggieville that does generate revenue for the city, and that's the garage. So while I will happily concede parallel parking and even learn how to do it, and very happily concede ADA parking, I think it would be unwise to prioritize free premium parking spots when we already have a mostly empty garage. The garage issues. The app sucks. I am not a Luddite. However, I hate the app. I don't want to use it. I speak for many of your constituents when I say that. The issue is not the price of parking, it's the friction in the process. Have we considered, perhaps, or discussed, an automated ticket system? Have we considered a sticker permit that I can just go and get and slap on my vehicle? The free 8 to 5 parking was unfortunately flawed from the start. Those that were impacted the most from the parking garage fees were people who work nights and weekends for tips. So an employer-validated free parking would be much better tailored. It would lose less revenue and actually solve the problem that it was meant to solve. And I would caution you, Commissioner Morrison. What is reckless to say as a citizen is dangerous to say as a commissioner. Fire codes exist because people died.
Thank you, Amber. Anyone else?
Name's Ed Klimek, and hey, I used to be up there. Welcome, you new commissioners. So you might be wondering, I'm the head of the West Loop West Side Business Association, so why the heck am I concerned about Aggieville? Well, full disclosure, I am on the ABA board, but also the importance of Aggieville to the community. It draws people in to Manhattan. Our visitors want to go to Aggieville, and it is certainly a huge plus in our quality of life for all of us to go down and have restaurants and that sort of thing. But the key to Aggieville is, and Dennis mentioned this earlier, most of our businesses are locally owned small business. We've got to make sure that those businesses can stay afloat. We got to make sure Aggieville is affordable for businesses, and we have to also make sure that they can have a cash flow. And that's not a bad thing. We got to keep those businesses in place. So when you're looking at changes in Aggieville, and when you're looking at Morrow Street, please make a decision where the merchants and the businesses in Aggieville will be able to prosper. And that'll be up to you, but you've heard comments about closing Morrow and keeping it open. I would suspect, and I can't tell you for sure, but I would suspect that most businesses want to have that parking there because that's what we're all about. Human beings, we don't want to walk. Love to park right in front of the door. So anyway, lots on the table. We've done some great things for Aggieville, and much greatness is coming, but we have to keep Aggieville affordable for those businesses to make sure they're successful. Thank you.
Can I just
Thank
give
you, Ed.
Ed some kudos for being the chair of our sister city in Czechoslovakia?
Yes.
And we got a Christmas card in Czech that we aren't quite sure what it says, but I'm sure it was well meant. Anyway, thank you for doing that, and we do need one more person on that board if anybody's interested.
Thank you for mentioning that, and it's my pleasure. We added a sister city to Manhattan when I was mayor of this fair city, and it's kind of a special thing. Appreciate your support for that, too.
So, did someone else have a comment for Ed? Okay, thank you. Okay, going once, going twice. Anyone else want to make a remark? Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support and your input. I'm sure we'll be continuing to meet with the ABA and with other business owners. Please feel free to contact us through our emails. Call if you want to have coffee. Let us know. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Good night.